Hello there everyone and welcome to our channel. My name is Savi from We Art Wolf, and for this video we're going to be working on a character in the Afrofuturistic style. Now, what is Afrofuturism, you might ask? Well, the simplest explanation that I could give is it is a combination of futuristic or science fiction with African culture. A great example for this could be the Black Panther stories, which is what inspired this character for this video. Now, I haven't seen every story or every artwork that has the Afrofuturistic style, but for me, this would be the first time seeing a character done like this. Out of all the references that I've seen, I haven't really seen a character that's done in this look or style, except for in Black Panther and their characters. And although this character was inspired by Black Panther and their stories, I still wanted the character to seem like it is possible for them to exist in that universe, but it is also possible for them to exist in their own story and in their own universe. So originally for this character, I wanted her to be a futuristic African female warrior, but I felt like for that kind of concept, I'd much rather have it a full body character rather than just a bust. So I ended up going with a futuristic queen instead. I was kind of stuck originally trying to decide what kind of look I should give this character, whether she should have battle scars or she should look old and aged and really wise. I wanted to make her seem like she actually knew what she was doing before, but I ended up changing that idea and going with a younger version and making her seem like she just got crowned a few days ago and she doesn't really know what she's doing. She's just new to this entire environment. So I wanted that kind of look for her. I find myself working on lips a lot more than usual these days when working on these characters. And for some reason, I feel like lips give off a lot of information. They can tell you a lot about a person's personality at some point. Just the same as eyes, you could look deep into a character's eyes and you can kind of get a sense of what kind of person they are. You can call me crazy, but for some reason, I really like working on lips these days, and I find lips really great to sculpt. What's pretty cool about working on rounded lips like these is you don't always have to use the damp standard brush. You can also have the clay builder brush with the intensity set to low, and then you could just carve out those details because the lips are really puffy. They're puffy enough, so they're really big enough for you to get in there with all kinds of brushes, so you don't just have to stick to the damp standard. So as you see here for this character, I'm not really focusing on the different parts of the head and going step by step and finishing them off and then moving on to the next. For example, focusing on the ear and then jumping on to the nose and then going to the eye. I'm all over the place for this character. I'm literally going back and forth, sculpting all these other forms and then focusing on other parts again and then coming back. This is because the character isn't too difficult. For a character that's really detailed or someone who has a lot of features, you'd want to just go step by step for most of the forms. You don't always have to, it's just easier that way. Also, it's quick reminder, it's also good to take a few steps back as well, especially when you're always zoomed in and focusing on little micro details. It's best to always go back and then see your character from a wider view. Now, for the clothing of this character, I started off with the traditional Zulu hat, which you see female Zulu women wear for cultural and religious ceremonies. This is the same hat you would see Queen Ramonda wear in the Black Panther movies, but I like that style because it's a lot more futuristic, and that's the idea that I was going with. I took a lot of ideas out of that and I made my own style, gave it a lot more futuristic looks and a lot more metal aspects and everything. Also, I should mention that for the hard surface sculpting of this character, I really didn't spend too much time on it. I just kind of did like a dirty work. It looks a little too organic, but from afar it looks okay. But usually you'd want to spend a lot of time focusing on the hard surface part of the sculpt, especially if you want the character to be later on used in a game. So you really want to focus on those kind of parts so that it's really easier for you to retopologize those objects. later on, and it's not a hassle, and you don't have to spend hours and hours trying to fix something that looks good now, but you would have to spend a lot of time trying to fix it and retopologize it the proper way, or even restart. Actually, to tell you the truth, you would want to spend your time on everything, every little detail that goes into the character. All the major details as well, obviously, if the character is going to be used in a game or animations. For sculpting, it's okay because you can kind of ignore things like topology or details that you wouldn't see. But for game characters, you'd want to make sure that what you don't see isn't rendered, or you don't have to put in so much details if it's not even going to be seen anyway. So you have to make sure that it's optimized and it works well within the game side of things, and it won't crash if you throw it into a game engine or anything like that. So you'd want to focus a lot on everything if you're going to retopologize later for a game character. It makes it so much easier. So back to the hat, I took a lot of ideas out of Queen Ramonda's hat, but I had the idea that mine should look a lot more futuristic, so I added this giant metal piece at the top of it and this other metal slab that covers a bit of her forehead. Then I added in a lot more marks and details and bumps to the giant piece at the top of the hat. I also had the idea that this should have lights, so I wanted to add in lines that had like LEDs in them and whatnot, but I ended up forgetting that detail when I threw everything into Photoshop, so it just looks like a little line, just looks like little lines into the hats, but it looks good. But I wish that I did remember to actually add in the lights and everything. So for the gaps in between this piece, I kind of had the idea that it would have like a grid texture, or it'll probably look like some kind of pattern. It would have some kind of futuristic pattern. So I made gaps in between these lines and just filled it in later. So from the images that I saw of Queen Ramonda and her hat and the way her hat looks, I liked the fact that they put in really cool lines going from the top of her hat going all the way to the bottom. So I wanted to add something like that to my hat, but I wanted mine to be thick and look a little more different. Originally, I wanted to have a lot more patterns and circles in there, and then I honestly got lazy and I just stuck with the normal lines, and then I just kind of got a little creative and added in a few extra patterns there, and then I just flattened some pieces and I was good. I was okay with the way it looked at the end. At this point, I did notice something about Queen Ramonda's hat, and not just her hat, but also the traditional hat that Zulu women wear. There are some styles or some designs where they have this really thin strap that I believe is supposed to be there to hold the hat to their heads, because it's tilted in a way where you would think that it would just fall off if they shook their heads a little bit. I did want to add in rings, the rings that some females wear in South African cultures, but I knew that I didn't want to stick with the normal golden rings around their necks. I wanted something that fit the entire style of the character, which is the futuristic look. So I moved around a few pieces, I added in some lines here and there, and at the end I got something that looks futuristic. It doesn't really seem to serve a purpose, but it really does feel like it fits in with the character at the end. Now, honestly, at this point, we can't say that it's done. We can just say that, okay, this sculpt is complete. We've done enough. She looks good with just her head, the hat, and the rings around her neck. We could just add in earrings and some markings, and it's okay. We can just save it and move on. But I felt like there was a lot more that I could add, so I ended up going in and adding in a torso, some clothing. And I should mention that I drew a lot of inspiration from Marvel's Endgame, Thanos' clothing. I use that as reference. It honestly feels like this character is going more towards the Marvel universe. It's starting to look a lot more like it can totally fit in that universe, but in the Wakanda side and all that. But at the end, I really did like the way this sculpt came out. So right now, I just felt like the sculpt needed more. I originally wanted to give her like a dress or something really basic, like a blouse or something, but I ended up choosing to go with a skin tight top with golden pieces everywhere because I was really inspired by Thanos's look. I really loved the way Thanos's upper t-shirt, I think you can call it a shirt, it's skin tight top, I guess. I really liked the way it looked with pieces of armor around it, so I got some ideas out of that. I really wish that I spent more time on the armor. I could have made it look a lot better than it did in the end, but it does look good. I just wish that I could have spent a lot more time doing details, going in with details, making it look a lot more grungy and a lot more detail, making it look withered and all that. But at the end, it did look okay. It did look okay. And if you want to spend time on details like that, it's totally okay. It also depends on what your due date is for the character that you're working on. Spend time on the things you know you can finish, or things you know that you need to. But for me, I was okay with the way the sculpt ended up. I was okay with everything that went into the sculpt, and it looked pretty good at the end. Now came finishing touches of the skin, such as wrinkles, pimples, and pores, and everything like that, and going back in and adding in a lot more detail on the mouth. There is an easy way to do this so you don't have to make like a brush and then add pores manually. So what I did for this sculpt, I went into the surface modifier and then I just added in a noise feature, and I added in the wrinkles myself, but the overall noise around the face, like the pores and everything, I added in using a surface modifier, which it really helps a lot. And then you can just apply it and then smooth out parts that you don't want to have grungy noise or anything like that. So it's a really easy way of doing things. It's also a very lazy way of doing it. But adding in pores for characters that would take too much time, it's much easier to just use modifiers or tools or plugins that are available to you, so, just to cut down on production time and all that. So I really like the way Thanos's top, can I call it a top? Is it a t-shirt? Is it a futuristic tank top? It's a space tank top. That's what I'm calling it now. So I like the way Thanos' space tank top looks with all the fabric details in there. It almost looks metallic as well. So I wanted to add something like that. Fortunately, ZBrush Core has this feature. Otherwise, I would have to done it myself manually. So you can add in all these micro details using a modifier. I was really happy to find out that ZBrush Core has this feature. The feature that I'm talking about, for anyone who doesn't know, is called micro poly. It's a really cool feature that allows you to add in so much detail, micro details onto the surface, or edit the entire mesh entirely by adding in so much detail that you cannot do individually. It would take you a very long time to do this by yourself, honestly. So you can add in details like chain mail. You can make your mesh look like chains or anything like that, or make it look knitted like denim knits or something like that. So it's a really cool feature, and I'm really happy that ZBrush Core has it. Otherwise, I would have had to move to the official ZBrush, which I do have, but for these videos I normally use my ZBrush Core. Now, if you enjoyed this video and you enjoy our content here at We Art Wolf Studios, please support this channel by liking, subscribing, and hitting that notification bell. We will be uploading a video every week, and if you want to see a video on a specific topic, either game, character creation, or just tutorials on ZBrush or guides, then leave a comment below. And from me to you, have a nice one, and I'll see you in the next video.